Welcome to a
Good
Thursday
morning.
edition, Jane. Good morning.
Yeah,
I was saying
excited to
before
be here.
in our pre-call warm-up, I love the sign, the pink, the kids artwork in the back.
Mhm.
This new office space is A plus.
It's coming together. There's a few more things to do, but it's coming together.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Thanks everyone for coming and joining. Oh, here you go. Some viewers in here too. Nice. This week we're doing an episode on Thursday because we have something pretty exciting tomorrow. Can we share it? We can share it, right? Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow, Jane and I are going to be pulling a plane, not just the two of us, with a bunch of other people. But we can't come to you on Friday because we'll be busy, hopefully moving the plane across the line. We've got big
Yes, we'll be
dreams.
supporting United Way during the plane pull. We've got Mercer Bradley put together a team for us. And so there's 20 of us with the Mercer Bradley crew that are going to be attempting to pull the plane tomorrow as a part of the kickoff and the fundraising efforts for the 2025 United Way campaign.
So exciting and such a good
Hmm.
campaign. They run such a good campaign every year. I have a few people who've been their leadership program from
Yep.
companies and in with United Way now, and they just do such a good job. So I'm excited. But that's why we're here today on Thursday. And it's Jane and I today. We have a pretty cool topic for you. We have an awesome guest we'll talk about for next week as well. At the end of the show, just a reminder for everybody. But this week we wanted to come and talk to you all about some productivity myths. We've both come in from a different summer for a whole lot of reasons. You took some
Yeah.
really well-deserved rest, juggled kids and business all summer, and fall has been interesting. It's been really good for me at least. Routine's been amazing, getting back into things, and I've felt more productive. But I've also realized that like a lot of the expectations we put on ourselves for like productivity don't actually work. Even knowing the things, I still use them myself sometimes. I'm like, oh, right, this doesn't actually do anything. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that today and what's working, not working for us. What are some insights we could share with you of things that we've seen work for a long time now that we're pretty confident in, like, you could take this away and start applying it. And then we have a little action for you to test out in your business this week to see what you think and see how you can use it to get better results. I'm excited to dive into this with Jane as always, because these are always a great conversation. But why don't you kick us off here, Jane? So I'm sure you have one that's like burning for you of like a myth that you just continually hear in your leadership training, in your conversations with people that you have that you could share with all of us.
Yeah. When I think about productivity myths and realities, there's probably two that stand out to me as like the top two. And one is that busyness equals productivity, right? There's lots of times where I would say I'm busy, but am I actually productive? No, I'm doing busy work. I'm focusing on the wrong things. I'm not necessarily I'm not effective. I might be busy, but I'm not necessarily doing things that make me effective. So I
It's
think
one of my
one
favorite
is this,
words, Jane. Effective.
right? What I see in large organizations, when I'm doing leadership training and when I'm working with organizations is you use the term in our pre-call of productivity theater and performance theater, which I think might be a Joe phrase also from
Yeah,
Work
I'm
Time
sure I've heard him
at
use that.
Revolution. We see so many people in large organizations that have almost like had it trained into them, ingrained into them, that success is to look busy. And if you look busy, you will be rewarded. Right. And
Mhm.
so leaders, it's an easy thing for leaders to see that, oh, that person's so busy. They must be working so hard, right? But it doesn't mean they're being effective. And so I think
No.
the busyness piece is one. And I can't remember if we referenced this on one of the previous calls we've had, Jordan. But when I think about this, I often think about the George Costanza episode of Seinfeld where he like his car is in the parking lot and never leaves. And they think that like, oh gosh, this guy's just working all the time. Meanwhile, he's doing absolutely nothing. He's
Yep.
like sleeping under his desk, during the day and all those types of things. So that's a big one. And then I think the other one that's big is, and it goes along with the busyness idea and the sort of productivity theater is that long hours
Yes.
equals better performance and or productivity. There
Totally.
is a sort of like law of diminishing returns on that, right? That like the longer the hours you work, the less productive you become over time.
Mhm.
And we've referenced research from Gartner before that talks about how, there's high performers that work a lot of extra hours. There's also low performers that work a lot of extra hours. There's high performers that work a lot fewer hours. And there's low performers that work a lot fewer hours.
Yes.
Hours worked in a lot of the type of work that we do isn't the number one predictor of success. And really, we should be doing a better job of looking at that idea of effectiveness, not busyness, not hours, but effectiveness and outcomes. And what are the results that people are getting? How are they meaningfully moving their work forward.
When you said effective, A, loved it because this has been a hill I've died on many times at companies I've worked for, is that the words we choose matter a ton because the more accurate we can be with the word, the more easy it is for people to understand, even when we're not there, right? The less
Yeah.
context that a thought or an idea needs to get done properly, the better. And so the hill I usually die on is everyone wants efficiency, right? They want to do more faster. And that is the hill I find myself dying on a lot is I don't want efficiency. I want effectiveness. I want to do
Hmm.
more of the right things more often. And that's the real difference to me. Efficiency is taking any process and making it faster, right? More efficient. You can do more of it. But what if the process sucks? What if it never should have been done in the first place? What if the current process sucks and it takes 7 people to do? Doing it faster is still going to take the 7 people all of their the cognitive load to do it is still all there. So you haven't made it any better. You're just doing
Yeah.
more of a bad thing. I've commonly gotten the pushback. I was like, well, yeah, effectiveness, efficiency is the same thing. It's like, no, it's not at all the same thing. Because sometimes once you've made something effective, you do want to make it more efficient, and then it's okay. But if it shouldn't be done in the first place, doing it faster is not good. That's
And there
productivity theater, right? Like it's not producing any better results.
And there are probably some things where faster isn't actually better. Like it's not going to be effective. And, one of the things when I was thinking about this idea of like productivity myths is that when we talk about the relationship between productivity and creativity, is
Hmm.
that they require different things, right? Like productivity requires a whole bunch of focus and time without distraction, right? That I have an hour where I can focus on a specific project, task, whatever, to be effective. But creativity doesn't require focus. I can't focus my way into being creative. There are certain things like, if I'm given a task of making something more efficient, making something more effective, maybe both of those things, I might not be able to do that quickly because I need time to think and roll around with the different implications of the
Totally.
different ways we could do this, to think if there's like an entirely new way we can do this. And there's sort of this opposite relationship between productivity and creativity in terms of how we can leverage them. And when we focus on being just productive and efficient, not only are we not effective, we're not creative.
I'm so glad we picked this topic because there's so much to dig into here. Like productivity is usually the completion of things is usually how it gets measured, right? How many things have you done? How many tasks have you knocked off your to-do list? How many little boxes have you moved from one column to another column? How big's your inbox? How big's your outbox? That's typically productivity. But in any of those things, where's the novel? Where's the insight? Where's the innovation? Like it doesn't happen in productivity. Productivity is the completion of a known problem, right? Like repeatedly. Creativity is the solving of a new problem that hasn't been solved before, whether that's an art form, whether that's an idea, whether that's a new process, a new system. Those take space and questions and thinking and reflection. And often people try to schedule and make creativity productive. And that to me
Mhm.
does not make sense. Space creates creativity. Productivity is the result of having been creative. You figure out what you need to do, and then you use your productivity skills to just go and execute on it. So the piece I had written down here was capacity. There's a
Mm.
great developer, I'm going to name his name, Nathan Koop, who worked with at
Yeah.
Bold. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know
I
Nathan.
remember
Nathan's
Nathan.
awesome. I'm going
Yeah.
to tag him in this.
Yeah.
But I would often remember him drawing me this graph of like, I know it's from somebody that he learned it from, and I don't know who it is to reference, but I'm
Yeah.
giving this one to Nathan Koop. He's the originator. Give me a graph. As capacity rises towards 100%, throughput decreases because the more at capacity a person, a system, a workshop is, the less room for error there is, and the less space there is for doing things better. You just
Hmm.
continually do the same thing over and over again with all your capacity. So when we were talking about planning roadmaps and future planning is like, if we schedule 100% of developers' time, we will get far less results than if we scheduled 80%, 70%, 60% of their time to leave buffer for creativity, to leave buffer to reduce drag, to keep buffer for like the emergency that comes up in 3 days that we couldn't have possibly seen coming. And so that idea of you don't schedule don't time box your whole day. Don't work the whole day. Spend some time being bored. Spend some time thinking about a problem. Spend some time like away from the keyboard where it's not productive time, it's creative time. And that's equally valuable, if not more. But we just give it no credit. We give it no weight. Productive or not productive. That's the current measurement system.
Absolutely. I see that with a number of organizations I work with today. And we talk about it from a creativity and a problem solving perspective. I also think of it from a leadership perspective. Right? We have folks that are so overscheduled And, when we look at leaders' tasks and all of the things that they have on their plate, I talk about this idea of making time to lead. Well, what's that percentage of time that they need
Right.
for doing, for leading, but then also that time that they need to deal with unexpected problems, to be creative, to deal with drag, to all of these other things, right? And so, yeah, that aligns a lot with that making time to lead idea as well.
Yeah. And this brings me back to when I started my business, I had ideas I was working through, and now there are different ideas that I'm working through now. But sometimes it's nice to remember those initial thoughts you had. And one of them was really around, I would talk to people about, we spend so much time building budgets, investment strategies,
Uh,
diversifying our income, et cetera. We do none of that for time, right?
uh,
We just jam a bunch of things onto a piece of paper that says like, I want to do all this stuff, but there's no categories, there's no buckets, there's no pre-planning of like where you want to allocate your resources. The day happens, a number of things get knocked off, and at the end of the day, you're like, cool, I did some stuff. So we treat our time like it's our most valuable resource, but we treat money like so much higher
yeah,
than we do time.
yeah.
And so I would argue to a lot of people, keep it simple. Make 3 buckets. Make like creativity, productivity, and enjoyment. How
Hmm.
much time do you want to spend between those 3? Write it down. What would be an ideal split? Most people haven't even done that first step. I'm not the best at this either. I do it in spurts and I
Yeah,
come and go from it. But like the concept is, it just makes sense, right? We spend so much time on money, but so little time on our time. That's the breakdown of, we try to just jam and jam and jam. And it's not about being productive at all times. It's about, you need to be able to do all the parts of what you need to do, not just the productive part of what you do.
yeah, absolutely. Something that when we think about this idea of creativity, of productivity, of how we use this time, and we might have mentioned this before as well, this idea that procrastination, there's like a certain amount of procrastination that's healthy. And research shows that to a certain level, procrastinators get better results and are more effective than people who don't
Mhm.
procrastinate. And obviously, like there's an extreme where people procrastinate too much and they don't get things done. That we're not talking
Yeah,
about that.
there's a sweet
But
spot.
there's a healthy level of procrastination that actually means people get to better results. And again, it's thinking about time differently and thinking about how you use your time differently and how many roles, how many jobs have allowances for procrastination or expectations
Right.
of procrastination built into them. They don't. It's looked
0.
at as a bad thing.
Yeah, this is a whole nother topic we could talk about, but like every good and bad word is both good and bad, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
procrastination is a skill when used properly, and it's
Mhm.
also a crutch and a piece of drag when it's used improperly. So we hear the word and most people use it improperly or don't recognize that they are using it correctly and just call it the bad thing anyways.
Yeah.
And I think that's a whole thing we need to unravel of like, there's good words to use for these things that we just need to be more okay with. Like they have a time and place within reason where they're actually more useful than not using them at all. But they have the slippery slope effect of too much of it and you end up in a much worse position. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a dangerous game to play, but you get the best results when you find how to navigate these like tightropes. But most people see the tightrope and they're like, I'm not a tightrope walker. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
I see that as a possibility, but like that looks hard. I'm not going to do it. Versus, how could I get myself to the point where I could know how much procrastination is good? Like, how hard would that be for me to learn? A week's worth of
Yeah.
learning?
And it probably depends a little bit too on the type, like it very much depends on the type of work that somebody does. But I think as we're talking about this, I'm like, I do have a certain level of procrastination strategically built into what I do, but it doesn't feel like procrastination to me because I have timed it out in a way that allows me to know I'll hit my deadlines, my targets. But, I know for me when I'm building a new presentation that the first iteration is going to be awful. And that can be hard to start, right? When you're like, oh, I don't want to pull this thing together. It's going to be so much work. And so I do a thing where I start with, I'm just going to do a slide pull. There'll be slides from different presentations. They won't even match at all, but I'm going to see what I already have that can play
I
into
like
this
that a lot.
presentation. And I pull it in and it's my SFD. It's my shitty first draft and it's just there. And I'm not going to I don't have to do anything with it. I'm just going to pull it together and then I'm going to leave it
I'm
for a
writing
couple of
down
days.
SFD because that's great.
Yeah, that's a Brené Brown special. That
Okay.
comes from Brené Brown. But there's
I
something
like
really
that.
freeing about giving yourself permission to do that shitty first draft, right? And I have a
Yeah.
presentation that's 2 weeks from now, and I did that shitty first draft on Monday of this week.
Okay.
So I pulled that. It's
Yeah.
sitting there. I haven't looked at it again for 2 days. I'll probably look at it again this afternoon or tomorrow. And when I go back to it, I'll be like, there's actually a bit more there than I realize. And then I'll start making it cohesive, pulling in some ideas, pulling in some stuff from the outline that I know I have to hold to for this client. Great, I'll do that. and then I won't look at it again until Monday or Tuesday next week. But I give myself some time in between. What's also interesting is these things that we put off, it feels like so much work, but like that slide pull thing took me 20 minutes. And when I go back to it this afternoon or tomorrow and look at it and spend some more time on it, I'll probably only spend another 45 on it and it'll be miles better than it was. And then next week,
Yes.
I'll spend another 45 minutes. I'll be like, okay, now I have enough to pull together the workbook and this and that. And I'll do a few additional things. But it's these steps that give space between that, like, take some of the pressure off, let you be creative, let you
Totally.
also recognize that it's maybe a bit better than you think it is on the first pull. And it's a part of the process to take my time with it. If I try and power through it all in one sitting, I'm not going to be happy with it. I'm not going to feel good
No.
about it.
And you'll probably have left it till too late to be able to come back to it, which will cause a bunch of stress. I really enjoy that because I'm also a big believer in like, you can't really start thinking about a problem until you've started working it a little bit. And then it gets loaded up is the way
Mhm.
I take metaphor brain to computer often. Like you need to bring it out of long-term storage to your short-term storage, your short-term memory, so that you can work on it initially. But now it sits a little higher up in like that midterm when you're sleeping, when you're showering, when you're whatever. And that's where the magic happens of like subconscious creativity, where you'll just get something because it's been working while your conscious has been somewhere else, right? Like, but if you don't load it up and do the shitty first draft or anything, you're not going to get deep insights from your little task that says create presentation. Like, that's a black hole. I don't know what I'm doing in there. I could do anything. It's endless
Mhm.
possibilities and it's also a nightmare. But once the draft is there, now I have something I can think about and be like, I think I like most of it, but there's a part that like those slides definitely are not working, right? Like, yeah, I got to come back to it. But then in your head, it's like, I'm not there right now doing it. So it gets time to think and like, what would I put there instead? Would I put this bridges
Mhm.
nicely? And then I can move this around at the end. All of a sudden you have the second draft that if you had to, you could probably present. It also opens up
It's close
future
enough.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where like maybe you would have liked to do it more. Maybe your goal was a little higher, but maybe something happens, life event,
Mhm.
emergency with a client. Someone's like, "Hey, Jane, we desperately need you to come in for 2 days here. We're like on fire." And you're like, you know what? This presentation is good enough that I can take
Yeah.
this now.
Absolutely.
Versus same request comes in and you haven't started it yet. I can't take that because what if this
Don't have
presentation takes me
capacity.
5 days? Totally.
It's where that really stands out to me is when I'm doing speaking gigs and you're doing like a 45-minute or an hour keynote presentation and you have all your slides and you have your message, but you're keynoting to a certain group, right? Like to Canadian Association of Payroll and Bookkeeper Association, which I know we've both been to before, or something like that. CPAs, CPHRs, whatever it is. And what I find is, so you go through that process of your first draft, you get it all ready and together. And I find that I need those last 3 or 4 days. Once my slides are ready and cooked, they've probably even been sent to the event people, but I still work on my notes. And what I find is those last 3 days when I'm not actively working on it anymore is when all the stories that I think of and I go, oh, I have a funny bookkeeping story about this. And I'm thinking about that client, that audience specifically. And having that done then also lets me be really creative around the little things I want to add in to the point that even in the morning where I'm watching a presentation before mine, I'm saying like, oh, I can call back on that thing Jordan just mentioned and tie it in and make it all sort of cohesive and fit. But it gives you this room to be
Yeah.
creative. And if I tried to force those stories and anecdotes into too short a time, it wouldn't happen.
Right. Or if you pre-wrote them into the slides, right? It's great to go with ideas, but I am a huge believer in the final version should not be complete for a presentation because it
Yeah.
should always leave room for the
The
room, the
spontaneity.
people, the story, the callbacks, the thing that needs to be emphasized. And you won't know that until you're partway through. And so if you're a robot just going on autopilot from start to finish, they'll get value, but you'll probably have lost them at some point. Versus if you have the roadmap that you're going to follow, but you're
Hmm.
willing to do a little, let's make this turn instead of that one here. That's where it can really like give you a lot of power. But it comes with a little like intermittent productivity to continue to build this thing and space so that it's not done. So that you can still like freestyle a little bit when you're up on the stage. And it gives you that allowance. I like that a lot. I just wanted to add before we get into like our insight and action. The one thing I struggle with the most, and this is something I've struggled with for a while in productivity, is I believe so much in all the things we just talked about. I also believe in like 4-day work week. I believe in asynchronous, like you work when you want to work and get the stuff done. I don't care how, when, unless it's like a meeting with somebody, then we have to be there, obviously. But I remember asking Joe this when he was here for the 4-day work week panel you and him did with Lee. I asked, how do we measure what capacity is when we don't have a shitty metric for it, right? Like we know hours sucks. We know number of tasks sucks. We know all these things we've tried have been poor representations of true productivity, creativity, like effectiveness.
Yep.
And then the other ones we do have are too far away from the action. Like, is the company growing? Is revenue up? Are customers happier? Like, how do I tie that to the work that someone's doing? Now, in a small organization like mine, much easier. In a large organization like the ones I've been a part of in the past, I struggle with how you would measure the effectiveness of a person in a role. Like truly, with
Yeah.
some objectivity, right? Subjectively, I can have a good feel for how productive they are and to feel like things get done. Am I happy with the outcomes? You can intuit a lot of that stuff. But that's also where a lot of bias and poor decision making happens if we're only relying on subjectivity to measure. And so my struggle with all of this is, so what's the answer? So if it's not those things, what is it?
Yeah.
And like, what's the objective way to add color to the subjective assessment? So we have both. So we don't lose out on bias or blindness or just missing something you can't see. And that's just been my struggle. I don't know if there is a right answer
Yeah.
or I haven't found anything I've liked yet, but
Did
that's
Joe
that's an
share
unknown to me.
anything? Did Joe have a
Not really, other than just like, well, the current ways suck. So if measuring heal by hours in seat sucks, then like not measuring the hours in seat, we're not losing anything by not doing that, right? So if we're
absolutely.
the subjective assessment is still better than the current model because our metrics suck. But it still leaves us in a world where like we have subjective evaluation, but not objective, which I just worry it leads to certain types of personalities or people still getting passed over because objectively they're doing great work, but subjectively it might be harder to see.
And still having people who thrive because they're
Yes,
good at making themselves visible and talking about what they're doing, even if they're
exactly.
not actually doing that much more than the introvert, quiet
Right.
person sitting next to them. Yeah.
The salespeople excel in the market today because they know how to sell themselves, which is not a bad thing. Everyone should be able to do it, but not everyone can. So the people who can't, how do they stand out for job interviews? How do they stand out for promotions? How do they stand out
Mhm.
for entrepreneurship? That's difficult, right? If the current metric that works best is subjective, visual, audible, can see and touch and feel what you've worked on, and it looks good to me, so I like you,
Yeah.
has to be a more objective way. Is it work to be done? It's not to mean like we can't use a subjective way. It's just in the back of my head, like, are we missing something important? Is there a missing piece of the puzzle?
And part of it does come down to becoming much better at figuring out what outcomes and what effectiveness looks like
Mm.
in various roles
Yep.
and like how do we define that, whether it's using KPIs or whatever, but there's always going to be a bit of subjective stuff in there because even with very set KPIs, things change. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
something that was supposed to be 50% of your job for this quarter, another project got piled on and you can't spend 50% of your time on that now and you have to shift and change. And so,
Exactly.
you have maybe these measurables, but there also has to be some discretion around, oh yeah, well, this big thing came up that changed our expectation on that and we've had to adjust. And,
Yes.
and what does that look like?
Without falling into the trap of hindsight, right? Of like after the fact, trying to measure backwards, which in a lot of ways measuring backwards is great. But for a case like
Yeah.
this, it's like we could rationalize what you ended up doing in so many ways. But was it what you should have done
Hmm.
given the information you had at the time? Like
And also,
hard
this
problem.
is sort of an interesting callback to the beginning of the conversation, but then part of me also starts to question if we get really focused on KPIs and some of these things, are we not also just potentially going back to busy work that is
Totally.
now
We're doing
work
stuff.
that we're doing to do the work
Hmm.
as opposed to just doing the work? And is it a distraction? Is it something that we're doing that is busy and whatever, but like ultimately doesn't actually help us be that effective, which is like a sort of full circle thing.
Exactly.
So I guess what we're saying is it's still a bit of an experiment to figure out that
Yes.
other side.
The thing I'm trying right now with some clients and ourselves, I am clear with everybody this is an experiment. This is a hard problem to solve, but the only way we solve it is by trying things.
Yep.
Is it's individual. Like each person you gotta sit down with and be like, what would be good metrics that we could look at that we both agree would tell us if you're doing an effective job of what you're responsible for. And for every person it's different and it has to be reviewed lots, but I think that that's work worth doing because it lets us make better decisions.
Absolutely. Yep. I agree.
Okay, that's one action. Do you want to go first, Jan, or second? Mine's ready,
I'll
but
do
I don't want to. I
second.
just
I
finished
gotta think
talking.
about
I'll
my
have
action. You
second.
go
Okay.
first.
Okay. I'm still working this thought through. I told Jane this is a work in progress, but I'm happy to share pretty raw. And then when it turns into something real, you'll see it on LinkedIn or probably hear about it in a future one. But I've had a lot of really good conversations with some past coworkers at various jobs I've had. And we were reflecting on like when were the companies at their best and when were they struggling? And we realized something common was companies are at their best when there's three types of leadership available for everybody. One is people who lead with their mind, ideas, solving problems, coming up with the way forward, the vision. You have people who lead with their hearts, people who connect with people, build relationships, make people feel listened to, welcome in a culture. You know, people who lead with their body, for a lack of a better word, but action. People who keep the trains on schedule, who make sure things get done, who make sure that once we've made decisions, we actually follow through and do them. And for people that I work with, small business owners, typically that all lands on them. And I'm a big believer, no one can possibly be good at everything. Everything is a stack ranked order of you have a one, a two, a three. It doesn't mean that you suck at the thing at three. It just means you're not as good as the thing as two and one. So my action for you this week is to help me test this idea, but also I think it's going to be beneficial for anyone who's running a business small or with a leadership team is stack rank yours. Do you lead primarily through ideas, through relationships, or through action? And put one, two, three. And then whatever the problem is you're having with productivity or the thing you're stuck on, ask yourself what's happening in this zone of the third thing I'm good at that could be contributing to this blocker. So for me, like action and body is my number three. So procrastination is a perfect example of like, I ask myself a lot of times, like, what is stopping me from doing this? And it's usually either that the idea hasn't been refined enough. I don't have the right people in the mix, but I have to stop and ask myself the question. But because I know that that's my third best strength, I know to look there first most often so I can solve the problem more quickly.
Yeah.
So that's my challenge for everybody this week is stack rank those three, mind, people, action, and see which one ends up in number three, and then look at your problems through that lens and see if that helps at all.
Amazing. I think it's a good one to put in our recap notes, but there's probably another LinkedIn post in there
Coming
exploring that
soon.
topic for folks that don't jump onto the live as well. I think my takeaway is maybe a simple thing for folks to think about. And mine came from a little bit of an experiment this last week. I generally am not a person who does puzzles. I'm not a puzzle person.
Ooh. Okay. Tell me more.
Last week was at Chapters, and there was a Jane
One of the
Austen.
best stories.
Yeah. There was a Jane Austen puzzle of like a world of Jane Austen with all the characters from all her books. And I was like, yes, I want that. So I got this 1,000 piece puzzle and I've been picking away at it over the last week. Just finished it last night, stayed up far too late,
Nice.
kind
Picture
of like
coming
in the
soon.
zone working on it. What I found though is last week that when I would get up to get myself a glass of water or do something work wise, I would often just go and whether it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I'd just be like, oh, I wonder if I can find a few pieces to fit in. And it was a little bit of that break, maybe that mind wandering, using my brain in a different way. And what it had me thinking about is how like simple that can be. I think that, we know organizations that had the resources to do really intense things to help employees play. Bold had games and ping pong tables and all these things,
Yeah.
which is great. But even if you're an organization that you're like, we don't have the budget to do that, like, is there a puzzle in the kitchen or in the
Yeah.
boardroom? Or are there things like that where when somebody's stuck on a problem or somebody's mind is like, you know what, I just can't do this anymore, where they can go and switch and do something else for 5 or 10 minutes, use their brain a little bit differently, maybe get a little bit of satisfaction from having placed a
I
couple
love that so much.
pieces. And is that something that you could consider doing for your team and your organization, whether it's a puzzle or something else, but something simple that lets people use their brains a little bit differently and also signals to your people that it's okay to stop in the day
Yeah.
and do something that isn't productive work wise and to take that break, like sort of a signal to your people. So that's one
I love that so much.
idea or action I would leave people.
And the puzzle's so easy. Like, everyone's selling a puzzle. You can go on Marketplace, Kijiji, your local garage sale, like just pick anything up. But I really like that because if it's visible, you do it, right? If it's hidden in a cupboard or something, or like if it's you have to go and do something to have the fun or have the break, you're so much less likely to do it. But if it's just out,
Yeah.
you can't help but just like look for a second and see if you can find a piece, maybe a second piece, maybe a third piece. And then by the time you're done, you realize like that little break gave you the missing piece of the puzzle you had for the problem you were working on,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
I
Yeah.
like this a lot, Jane.
Okay,
Awesome.
good, good,
Like
good.
that.
Well, this was a good chat today.
Yeah.
Lots of things to sort of
Yeah.
think about and lots of little sort of mindset shifts that we can make.
Totally. The notes for this one are gonna be fun. I might need some help on this one with
Sure.
the AI overloads. Lord, to be like, what were all the things we talked about to put them all into some notes for us. So
Yeah, excellent.
nice seeing you, Jen. I'm
Nice
gonna
to
see
see
you
you too.
tomorrow again. I'm very excited.
Yes, excited for the plane pull, and then we're also really excited about next week's live, which will be hosting with guest Amanda Busey, who's going to be joining us. And we know that she has an interest in talking about this idea of grace over grind. So looking forward to exploring that topic with her.
Yeah, just those words alone make me so happy. So
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
good,
Awesome.
good,
You'll
good.
see the invite coming for the event shortly. We're gonna set this one up early so you have lots of time to make time, schedule in your calendar if you want to hang out with us. So questions for us or her, feel free to send them over before the show and we'll make sure to squeak as many as we can in.
Sounds good. All
Awesome.
right. Thanks, Jordan.
See you everybody.
See ya.
See you, Jane.
Bye.